In 1972, Masao Maruyama had departed Mushi Productions, an animation studio for which he spent 7 years working under the godfather of manga himself, Osamu Tezuka. Maruyama had left the studio due to its immense financial struggles, and he felt that he needed a fresh start. So he and 3 other friends formed a brand new studio, which Maruyama would serve as the president of. The studio's name was Madhouse, and under Maruyama, Madhouse would go on to be one of the most renowned and influential animation studios ever. Perfect Blue, Ashita no Joe, Vampire Hunter D, Trigun, Hajime no Ippo, Monster, Paranoia Agent, Black Lagoon, Death Note, Keiji, Hunter x Hunter, and literally hundreds more iconic anime were produced under his watch. It's safe to say the anime and manga, as we know today, would not be the same if it weren't for Maruyama and Madhouse. Maruyama began to feel limited at Madhouse and felt like he couldn't take any risks without investors breathing down his neck. So at 70 years old, he once again left Madhouse to form a brand new studio titled Maruyama Animation Produce Project Association, otherwise known as Studio MAPPA. The studio didn't start off by churning out the groundbreaking generation-defining series like Madhouse did, which was all Maruyama's intention. MAPPA instead got to work on lesser-known and more creative-focused projects, such as collaborating with legendary Cowboy Bebop creator Shinichiro Watanabe on Kids on the Slope and Terror in Resonance. Though after 5 years of working at MAPPA, Maruyama felt restricted by corporate greed and like he could no longer make what he wanted to again. So he left the studio, handing it over to another founding employee of MAPPA, Manabu Otsuka, then going off to form his third animation studio, M2, which recently produced the Pluto anime adaptation. Under Otsuka's reign, MAPPA took an entirely different direction. Right after he was made CEO, a series by the name of Yuri on Ice was released, and it was a smash hit. As a sports anime with a little romance mixed in, it of course had wide mainstream appeal, and not just in Japan though, but also here in the West, as Yuri on Ice was a lot of people's first Studio MAPPA anime. This caused a dramatic change in MAPPA's production line, as before 2016, the studio only produced 1 or 2 series a year, but Otsuka dramatically increased that to 5 to 6 series a year. It was no longer a question of if MAPPA was going to animate something, it was a question of yes, as the studio started to take on any and all projects that were offered to them. Though no one was complaining, as the studio had an extremely high quality bar. If a manga you liked was getting an anime by MAPPA, you knew it was in safe hands. This of course led to the generation-defining Jujutsu Kaisen, which broke all records in terms of profit for the studio, pushing them to be one of the most well-renowned names in the anime scene overnight. The following year, MAPPA had replaced Studio Wit as the animators for the final season of Attack on Titan, a massive undertaking that yielded massive profit. Then after that, they made the JJK Zero movie that again yielded massive profit. Then after that, they animated Chainsaw Man, entirely funding the project on their own with no production committee. Then after that, they replaced Studio Wit again and took over production of Vinland Saga Season 2, making them more money, and then Hell's Paradise making them more money. Then this is where we are today with Jujutsu Kaisen Season 2, which once again has taken the world by storm with what, possibly, has 3 genuine contenders for my favorite anime fights of all time, and the season still isn't done. The animators at MAPPA should be extremely proud of what they are able to create, as they were given ample time and fair pay to realize their vision to the fullest, is what I would say if I was lying. When most people hear the name Studio MAPPA, they know them for 2 things: astonishing animation and horrible working conditions placed on its staff. In the past 3 years, a lot of animators who have worked at MAPPA have spoken out about their experiences of insane overwork with little pay to compensate. Due to working on 6 different anime at once, Studio MAPPA doesn't seem to have the time management skills to train new animators. Instead, they just kinda tell new staff to figure it out themselves as soon as they walk in the door. Mushio, a former MAPPA employee, says that since there are so many amateurs with no proper coaching, he very rarely has time to actually animate. It seems that all MAPPA would have him do is correct and fix mistakes of the inexperienced animators until the sun came up. These issues would be avoidable if MAPPA would take the proper time to train their animators, but it doesn't seem the studio wants to do that. Training the animators takes time, and time is money when you have 6 different series due out by the end of the year. There are hundreds of other horror stories by other animators. For example, the Attack on Titan final season director, Teruyuki Omine, was stuck at the studio for 3 whole days straight, not being able to go home till he was finished. Veteran mangaka Hisashi Eguchi has talked about in the past how he once worked on a project for MAPPA, but they only ended up paying him half of what they promised. So who exactly is to blame for MAPPA's inexcusable treatment of its animators and staff? Well, I think that's fairly obvious. The appointed CEO, Manabu Otsuka. In the years since he was promoted to his position, MAPPA has worked on 31 different series, not counting movies or OVAs. Of these series, MAPPA has only been a part of a few of their production committees. A production committee is a group of companies that form together to produce an anime. For example, the Attack on Titan production committee, one of the only ones that MAPPA is actually a part of, consists of Kodansha, the company that owns the rights to the manga, Pony Canyon, the company that makes the soundtrack, and lastly, Studio MAPPA, the ones that actually animate it. Early on, these production committees are important because they are the ones that establish the budget, scheduling, casting, etc. Once the anime is off the ground, they oversee everything to make sure that the production is running so smoothly. The problem with MAPPA being a part of so few production committees means that they come into the fold of most series extremely late, with no actual say in terms of creative input. This implies that MAPPA is more just seen as a work-for-hire mercenary company that will sell their soul to make a quick buck. It's no longer a company that Maruyama made to be a haven for creatives such as himself. Otsuka has turned the company to a corporate buyout, where they will accept all projects because that of course makes investors happy. Then the investors give Otsuka money. Of course, this money doesn't ever seem to flow down, as Otsuka pays his animators very little per cut. Just to clarify, a cut in an anime is a single shot in which the camera doesn't cut or switch. On average, there are around 300 cuts in a single episode. The bare minimum that most animators are paid is around $15,000 or $100 per cut. Of course, cuts that are more complicated are given to experienced animators, and in turn more money. Though MAPPA does not seem to do this, as the bare minimum Otsuka pays his animators is 3,800 yen or $25 per cut, a measly quarter of the industry standard. Otsuka has made public statements before stating that these pay rates are untrue and that MAPPA pays its animators fairly, but I don't believe them. We got these numbers from industry veterans who have worked with MAPPA before, some still active at the company. They won't just be making this stuff up for fun, they are saying these things because they are true. Online, I've seen a lot of people say that these animators are just lazy, only asking for more money because they are greedy, and that they should just shut up and do what they're told. I think that this is the most brain-dead take you can have on the situation, and one that makes me genuinely angry. By no means are any animators lazy. I don't know how you can look at any episode of anime in general, let alone a MAPPA-produced one, and think that this is the result of being lazy. Animators work extremely hard, literally day and night sleeping at their desks to finish episodes on harsh deadlines for literal peanuts. Why? Well, it's not because they're greedy, it's because they love to animate. It's probably been most of their dreams since they were kids to work on the anime that they love watching so many others can enjoy them too. They would probably keep working in horrible conditions purely fueled by passion if they could, but they can't because almost all of them have families that they need to support and families that they want to spend time with. If the animators work so hard to provide for us, I think that's only fair we return the favor and speak out about the issues that they face. Without the animators, we wouldn't have the anime. Though sadly, that isn't enough to convince some people. They still insist on laziness. So let me ask these people a question. Do you think that the working conditions that are placed on these animators is making the anime any better? That brings us to some recent events regarding Jujutsu Kaisen Season 2, the events that prompted me to make this video. As I mentioned earlier, JJK Season 2 is airing right now, and so far it has been amazing. In my opinion, it blows every other MAPPA series out of the water in terms of sheer creativity and volume. Fights like Gojo vs Toji, Mekamaru vs Mahito, Choso vs Itadori, Sukuna vs Gojo, and Sukuna vs Mahoraga are the reasons I watch anime, and the reason I love JJK so much. The animators have done an outstanding job in creating one of the best seasons of anime ever, and it still hasn't finished airing. It is a miracle that they were able to create something so stunning under such immense time constraints, especially looking at some previous MAPPA series. The studio is going through a really weird phase right now, where they are officially taking on more than they could possibly handle. They've done this in the past, but they've just gotten lucky. Now MAPPA has to start prioritizing some series over another. One notable victim was Hell's Paradise. Hell's Paradise started out looking pretty good, having some really amazing cuts of animation and great use of coloring. But slowly as the first season went on, things began to fall apart and really fall apart. Past the first few episodes, Hell's Paradise did not look good. The movement was extremely stiff and the fights were boring to look at. Of course, I wasn't expecting it to have JJK levels of animation. That is an unfair expectation. but I just expected the show to look good. Though bad action animation can just mean that the series didn't have a high budget. But there was another more glaring issue with the show: the mistakes. Going back to what I talked about earlier, MAPPA has no time to train its droves of new staff, just throwing them into the pilot seat, telling them to learn to fly on their own. This, of course, leads to lots and lots of mistakes, such as off-character models and weird-looking faces, which was extremely frequent in the first season. It is normal for animators to make mistakes. That's why there's another team who specializes in corrections, but a regular correction team cannot correct this many mistakes in such little time. Of course, this all could have been avoided if MAPPA had trained their animators and given them enough time, but MAPPA doesn't have time or budget for that when you have to make 5 other shows. Some people will argue that that's just a problem with the lower prioritized episodes. To that I say the term lower prioritized show should not result in series that are just straight up bad. But also no, this is not just a problem with shows like Hell's Paradise, as high priority shows are starting to see these same problems, like JJK. We talked about time constraints earlier and how MAPPA has just gotten lucky with their output, like with the JJK Zero movie, which the animators only had 4 months to produce. 4 freaking months. Just for reference, the average major motion picture anime film takes around 2 to 3 years to complete. Jujutsu Kaisen Zero was a miracle that it even got out the door, let alone looked as fantastic as it did. At the same time, I cannot imagine how hard the animators worked to finish it. I honestly don't doubt that most of them ended up living in the office so they could work 24/7. The film generated $200 million at the box office, a huge success. But the sad thing is that the animators themselves, the ones that did all the work, probably didn't get any of that money, while the suits at the top did. At least they got to put a down payment on their 14th yacht. In fact, they have gotten really lucky over the years. So lucky that they probably think that they can just keep getting away with giving their animators no time, no pay, and prioritize the bigger series. Though clearly that is not working anymore, like with the Chainsaw Man anime, which is a whole nother can of worms that I covered in this video, so check that out if you want to learn more. But more recently, with Jujutsu Kaisen Season 2. I know I have been raving about how good Season 2 has looked in this entire video, and that is true. It has looked amazing, but it also has some deep flaws. Flaws that are caused by the same problems that Hell's Paradise had. Take a lot of this following information with a grain of salt, as it's pretty new, but most likely true. MAPPA has seemingly managed their time and budget so poorly that now their high priority series are beginning to suffer. When Season 2 first started to air in July, the first 5 episodes looked perfect, like literally perfect. In my opinion, it was already better than Season 1, even without the big fights because of the countless creative spins that the animators put on everything. But after episode 5, there was an almost month-long break until episode 6 aired, which is really strange. Some people just thought it was to give animators a break before Shibuya, but I can guarantee the animators probably worked harder than they ever have in that month, as the delay was so that the animators could actually catch up with the episodes. Things started off promising after the break, a little rough around the edges, but it wasn't until episode 12 did the cracks begin to show. This entire episode just looked stiff. The movement wasn't nearly as dynamic as it was in previous episodes, just stunted. Some people were saying that anime fans have too high expectations nowadays, and while that may be part of it, it's not the whole. JJK was known for every single fight looking good, no matter how small or minor. So to have a small fight not look good was very telling that the schedule didn't allow the animators to fulfill their vision. Though it was even worse when episode 13 ended up being the best looking episode in the entire series up until that point, since it had a major fight, showing that MAPPA had to prioritize specific episodes over another. Then, episode 14 was weird though. This episode had a major fight and a list of veteran animators working on it. So it was super surprising when the episode just looked so off. The best way to describe it was the animation being stuttery. I straight up thought that my internet was freezing, things were so bad. MAPPA is starting to screw things up so badly that not even some of the most talented names in the industry can fix it. In short, they are running out of luck. Things got downright depressing when episodes 16 and 17 aired, and they ended up being one of the most impressive looking episodes ever, not just in Jujutsu Kaisen, but anime in general. That part itself is not depressing, but apparently the animators wanted to push things further, and only 30% of their vision was realized, but they couldn't get to the other 70% because they had no time to. This pisses me off so much to know what we could have gotten, but if I'm being honest, I'm still pretty happy with what the team pulled off. A bunch of veteran animators who are still actively working on JJK Season 2 were so fed up with MAPPA and their BS that they started to talk publicly about it, which is something almost unheard of in the anime industry. Episode 12 director Okubo Shinsuke tweeted an image of a character trying to hang herself. There were a lot of other tweets from animators such as, "Everything is really too harsh. What do you think of people? Throw away your keycard in the company trash when you leave work. The production desk just abandoned their duties. It's over." The worst cycle is when staff members all somehow manage to complete a schedule that would be impossible to meet under normal circumstances, while saying hell. The higher-ups who only saw the results misunderstand and neglect to improve. It's disheartening that the compensation for the work is not exceptional compared to others, and instead it's a relatively insufficient amount considering the position. It's a sad situation. There seems to be no dream. There were tons more tweets like this of animators venting their frustrations with Studio MAPPA that it is genuinely disheartening. These extremely talented people not only deserve fair hours and pay, but to be able to have the time to make something that they can truly be proud of and realize their vision to the fullest. All of these tweets were made on November 16th, 2023, so something must have had to happen for everybody at the company to get so mad. It might have been the fact that the animators asked for a break to finish the next episode on time and were denied it, but we still don't know. Of course, we know who to point the finger at in all this mess: the CEO, Manabu Otsuka. He is the one who greenlights 6 different projects. He's the one who decides the animators' pay. He's the one who helps organize the schedule. And most of all, he's the one that gets a good paycheck and can go home at the end of the day to his family, a luxury his staff don't have. All this blood, sweat, and tears shed because Otsuka wants his studio to be the biggest one in the industry for no other reason than his ego. And he hopes to achieve that as soon as he can. But of course, he's not going to be the one to put in elbow grease to make this happen. His employees will. His employees who are getting sick and tired of his antics. As MAPPA's reputation for being a bad place to work grows, the less and less talent they're going to be able to get on their staff. This means that they can't rely on industry veterans to fix everything that the underexperienced, untrained animators can't. So no talent means the quality of their shows will nosedive along with their reputation. I know that this sounds like a long shot, but one thing for certain is Otsuka cannot maintain his current style of accepting whatever comes his way. If the big hitters like JJK are having massive issues now, who knows what series in the future will look like as MAPPA gets worse and worse. Series like Vinland Saga Season 3, Chainsaw Man Season 2, JJK Season 3 will no doubt be heavily compromised in quality. So what changes does Otsuka need to make to save his company from an inevitable nosedive? First, cut back on how many series you produce a year so you don't spread your talent thin. Second, better schedule your production so that the animators are able to not only go home, but have enough time to realize their vision to the fullest with trained staff. Third, pay your animators so they don't have to go to other studios just to be able to put food on the table. These few things shouldn't be hard, but they're going to be necessary. Or else MAPPA will probably fall from grace like no other. That's all I have for today. I'll see you guys next time. Have a good one.